On3 does things differently than any other recruiting or evaluating website, and we're going to talk to the director of scouting and rankings, Charles Power. Charles, how you doing today?
I'm doing good.
Good, man. I appreciate you for taking some time. Let's start with this. We'll give you a softball to start with before we get into some of these heavy hitters. What fan base like you've been doing this a long time, what fan base consistently gets the most upset with you when rankings are released and come out every year?
Oh man, I mean, it would be hard for me to pin down one. A lot of times, I think with in the cycle, a lot of it hinges on quarterbacks. Quarterbacks is always a big thing. Man, it's tough. I could probably go year through year and give you one each year. And it really depends. Like I think, I think fans tend to have short memories, and like one year will be high, like relatively to the industry on a class, and then one year we might be relatively lower. But I think if you take full stock of it, there is a fluctuation for sure. It would be hard. It would be hard to pick one. It would actually. I mean, you said you're open with the softball. That's a hard ball for me.
Who's giving you the hardest time right now?
Oh man, I don't know. I mean, I think there's a lot of conversation around Florida, for sure. But it probably honestly like depends. Like it really hinges to me. Like I look at all this individually. So it's more like individual prospects. Like we can get into guys that we might differ on, and be higher on or lower on. But I think we can like I can explain. I feel like or give rationale for everything we do. So which obviously I think we'll be probably we're going to be wrong at times. I think we'll be right more than we're wrong, but we try to hold ourselves accountable and go through each year and kind of like judge our results against the NFL draft. I think if you look at the data with that, we've done a really good job. Like this past year, like I think like the rankings that I was involved with at 24/7 Sports, like were the best recruiting rankings ever, like relative to the NFL draft. So that's what we're going for. In real time, the conversation might be a little different, but we judge these 3-4 years down the line.
Yeah.
So it's one of those deals where you don't really get instant gratification or instant results on it, at least until they start playing college football. So, and this is like, I would stress as well, like this is a work in progress for us. This is our July ranking. They have not like yet played the senior season, which for us is the biggest data point, the biggest evaluation point. So this ranking, this update that we put out is heavily influenced on in-person evaluations. We saw a ton of these guys over the last 3-4 months. Our last update was in April. So there's about a bunch of that. We have a ton of like verified data. So we go through and we have sources and services where we have like verified height, weight, arm length, hand size, wingspan, all of that on probably 85% of the 300 of the 300 prospects in the On 300. So it's very analytical, and it's the way we do it. I mean, we can kind of get into the details of like, I guess, our process, but it is like not personal, highly individual, and it's like position group based. And we have a bunch of factors that go into it, but it is a very methodical process on how we attack it.
Yeah, you mentioned your senior season being the biggest data point. Is there like a percentage? Like, how do you weight camp versus like in game? I don't know if there is a specific percentage point versus some of that other stuff. Like, how do those things factor differently?
Yeah, so ultimately how they play, it's a combination of like projectable physical skills, traits, skills, and performance, how they play. I weigh performance more the later in your career. So like we aren't really grinding stats on freshmen and sophomores, whereas we're looking at a lot of that as seniors. There's certain markers. Like I have a spreadsheet I've been keeping of NFL draft picks as high school prospects. I would say it probably goes back 7 or 8 years at each position. And I have kind of averages, like critical factors that we look for at each spot, and we just like refresh that and update that every year. So it really depends on each position, and I think there's certain critical factors we look at for each one. But I would say, to keep it simple, the further you are in the evaluation process relative to their high school career, the more how they play in games matters.
Yeah.
Because we really like, for us, a lot of it is determining, going into the senior season, is determining, okay, what are their physical tools? What's the capacity for improvement? What's the high end upside? And then we really drill down on the type of football player they are as a senior, because that's really going to be the most recent sample of how they are like relative to going in to college. Like a lot of this, like recruiting, the college evals, and especially like the early rankings, the hype that kind of builds around your traditional big name prospects, that's formulated sophomore, junior year, when like we really have the best feeling of how good they are when they're seniors. After, like, in the recruiting process is so accelerated now, they're already committed. But for us, we're trying to kind of set the table going into the senior year, and that's when we really kind of focus on the type of player you're getting. And then we see these guys in person at National All-Star Games, which is the only like padded all-star event you get, and it's like a day or two before they enroll. And most of the time what we see at those events is very telling on how those guys are going to stack up on a college football field.
Yeah. I want to talk to you a little bit about the On3 industry rankings. We will get right back to chatting with Charles, but if you are tuned in and you haven't ordered from Gramco recently, make sure that you get that done. Thegramco.com. You can use TJ25 for 25% off at checkout, whether you're looking for the blue raspberry gummies, which are my personal favorite, vapes, pre-rolls, wake and bake coffee, whatever you're in the mood for, Delta 8-wise, they've got you covered. They are big Nole fans. They're FSU supporters. They are vet-owned, and they are phenomenal people to work with. Thegramco.com. They make today's video possible. Make sure that you go get your Delta 8 from thegramco.com using TJ25 at checkout. Why do you percentages are different than maybe what you had at 247? Can you talk to us about like the industry rankings, how they're weighted, how much you value the industry compared to, your own rankings? So just maybe the industry rankings in general.
Yeah. So I think I would start off with, I think the industry rankings, I think it's a great product. It's something that is a driver for the team rankings, which to me is, if you're a college football fan, that's really one of the most important metrics you can look at. Like, I think it's those team recruiting rankings are very informative on the type of talent you're bringing in overall, and really, I think, kind of sets the ceiling in most cases for Power 5 programs' ability to like make a push for the college football playoff. So that's really like our individual prospect rankings are the building block for the team rankings. And I think that creates the best picture as to an overall team's talent. And I think it holds everybody accountable. And I think it creates the fairest picture on what just the recruiting industry views these prospects as, and these classes as, I guess, most importantly. So, our average, or our formula has changed. I can't remember the exact percentages, but I think it's 40% On3, 40% 24/7, and then 20/20 Rivals and ESPN. I believe like Shannon Terry, our founder CEO, said that like that was primarily just the resources that each, it's kind of contingent on the resources that each company puts on the kind of into recruiting rankings, like, and having worked at 24/7, I know those guys put a lot into it, but I mean obviously running it at On3, I know we put a lot into it. So, and it's, I think when you look at like the staffing, how much each company like updates and puts into it, I think it's valid that we're factored in at that percentage. But yeah, I mean, I think I think some of it is just how much you individually weigh on each ranking. I mean, like, and I think it's important too to kind of understand, um, you know, football is probably not like basketball. Like this is like a really developmental sport. There's a lot of varying opinions. We don't see all these guys on like the AAU circuit. And I think it's good like that. There's like, not a ton of like groupthink necessarily, or maybe like a little less groupthink in the industry. And I don't like, just personally speaking for me, I don't, where other sites have guys rated, like that does not factor in to where we do it. And honestly, like where they go to school, like that's not something that like I really heavily look at. Like it's not a factor. And I think too, like if you're doing this honestly in the era of the transfer portal, a guy who signs with one school could easily be at another school tomorrow. Like, yeah. So I think if you were ever going to project, a high school prospect, like they just aren't married to the college to the degree that they were with one-time transfer portal, all of that. So it's just way more, like it just fluctuates a lot more with where guys play in college. So, yeah, it's really interesting, but something I think that I feel like we can explain everything we do, and I'll stick to our guns on a lot of these evals, and we're extremely fluid. I think that's one thing we're different at with On3 is if we see a move that we think is gonna needs to be made, like we're gonna make it, and like it might seem drastic or a lot, whether it's up or down, but we're gonna we're not gonna like cut corners on making moves we think we need to make.
You worked at 247 for a long time, and I'm certainly not asking you to fire any shots that way. But I will ask you, what you just kind of mentioned being fluid and sticking by your guns and things like that. I could use a few more cliches, but what truly does separate On3 and make it the best rating possible at this point?
Oh, I mean, I don't know if it's my place to say I think we had the best one. I mean, I just know that I just believe in our process and how we do it. I just know like the work that we put into it. I think the big reason why rankings have gotten better over the last several years relative to like the NFL draft is, I think it's just taking it seriously. We work on it all year, and we try to get it right. I think the amount of data we have is unlike anything that I've kind of experienced. And I think too, like we're committed to getting better. Like I think of, when I was at 24/7, and I can't really speak to what they do there. I have a lot of respect for those guys. I mean, they were all my former coworkers. So I'm not super privy to their process, but I just know like what we do. It's really intensive. I have access to every high school football game in the country. I probably watch, I don't know. It would be hard to put a number on it, but I would say I probably watch, 15 to 30 high school games a week, and try to get eyeballs on as much like the players and just input. Like I think, we do get feedback from college coaches. I think you try to balance that, but I think taking in everything. But the amount of data we have, the access to video, just since in the years that I've been doing this, it's more now than ever, and I think that manifests itself in a more accurate ranking. The one difference I would say negatively now is we don't get to see quite as many kids in person throughout prior to the senior season national all-star games, just because like you look back 2013, 2014, 2015, the opening, we get to see everybody. Whereas now, like I just don't get to see as many offensive linemen prior to, especially in pads, like we used to get to see at the opening prior to the national all-star games. So that I think has to kind of stress like certain positions are maybe like a little more work in progress later throughout the senior year. So, and it's a process. I mean, it's definitely a passion. I think you have to really, really like this to want to do it as much or kind of as intensively as we do. But I mean, I consider this my dream job, and it's worth putting up with anything we have to deal with to get to this day, for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, cool, Charles. Tell the folks where they can find more about the On3 Rankings, more about what you do, more of your work online.
Yeah, on3.com. I think our social accounts are the best recruiting social accounts on the internet. It's at On3 Recruits on everything. My accounts are all at Charles Power on social. And on3.com, at On3 Sports is our college football, college basketball social accounts as well.
Good stuff, man. Well, I appreciate you for hanging out, man. Take care and have a good one.
All right. Sounds good.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate Charles Power for hanging out with us for a few minutes today. If you missed our latest video with him on why certain FSU recruits jumped in the rankings, why others may have fallen, you can click right here to get caught up on the latest.